Let's roll, baby. Happy New Year, one and all. Welcome into the Week 17 edition of Ringer Wise Guys right here on FanDuel TV. The boys are ready to rock. We got winners galore as we go through the final show of 2023. We have 2 weeks left of regular season action, and then it's full tilt going into January, going into 2024, and going into the start of the postseason. We welcome in Cousin Sal, Raheem Palmer, Joe House, and Cousin Sal. I know the Christmas holiday was last week, but you got a late Christmas present, buddy. The end of that Cowboy-Lion game. Merry Christmas. Thanks to the officiating
Super Bowl
Merry
bound.
Christmas.
Super Bowl bound is all I have to say. What a way to kick off the new year. A few points short of cashing that same game parlay with Simmons, but otherwise I see nothing to worry about as a Cowboy fan. Just a good, clean win. Listen, stop crying, Lions fans. You know what? Mike McCarthy gave you an opportunity at the end there. Otherwise, you were dead to rights, throwing a bomb on second down for no reason when we should have been cutting the clock out. And by the way, the wrong guy reported, and it was announced on the overhead, and that's why the Cowboys didn't cover 68, because it was announced in the stadium. 68's ineligible. That's why. That's all I have to say.
Hey, Sal, you don't need to apologize. Take your win and move on. You know, Raheem, I do have to say this about your football team, though. Your head coach at the end of these games, what is he doing? Run the ball. I mean, you gave the Lions 40 extra seconds.
Look, if you grew up in a black household, you've heard the phrase, God protects fools and babies. And I never believed it until last night because Mike McCarthy got protected. They bailed him out with the A-side call. Everybody who watched boxing knows that the A-side always gets the benefit of the doubt. And we got the benefit of the doubt. It's a beautiful thing.
And House, now as we look ahead to Week 17, a lot of games with serious playoff ramifications. I'm glad for the most part weather is not going to be a huge factor. Is the teaser wheel spinning within our buddy right now? I know you got like 10 zillion teasers ready to go for the show. Is that accurate?
This might be a parlay week this week, JJ. I don't have... The numbers aren't, I put them into the math machine. I tried to use some of the Mensa inspiration from last night's matchup between Dan Campbell and Mr. McCarthy. And I just can't, in the same way they can't figure out how to report, I can't come up with any good teasers, but I do have some parlays, buddy.
Well, we like the sound of that. We have a loaded card coming your way here on Ringer Wise Guys. The boys have gotten in the lab. We have you set for the Week 17 Wise Wagers. You're going to love these. We're going to find some future value. You still can with 2 weeks to go. Is it a potential division odd? You'll have to wait and see. I finally hit a monster dog of the week with the Patriots. How great a Christmas present was that? We'll see what I have in store for our man's best bet. And then last but not least, in digital time, we will have college football playoff bets as there are 2 games on New Year's Day and one I cannot wait for, in Alabama and Michigan in the Rose Bowl. That's as good as it gets. All right, guys, let's wisen up. Sal, you still are the leader in the clubhouse. You have warned me that I probably am either going to like or I'm going to hate your best bet of the week. So care to explain?
Well, I think you're going to hate it because you're going to think I'm trolling you, but that's not it. You're reading into it. You're already reading into it too much. I don't even know if you're reading into it. But listen, JJ, I have made about 100 bets on this program, and not one of them on your beloved Miami Dolphins. I know you know this. I bet against them plenty, mostly to get under your skin. But I'm 10-5-1, and the hatred ends today. I absolutely love this spot for Miami against Buffalo, getting the 3.5. I don't like teams coming off a short week after an emotional, physical, upset victory versus the 49ers, which is what the Ravens went through. And no one looks that good 2 weeks in a row against solid teams. We saw Buffalo throttle Dallas, came back and barely beat the lowly Chargers. There's 100 examples of this. Lamar and Baltimore are in the same spot, and they don't rebound well after big wins, specifically that team. They beat up on Cincinnati. They lay an egg against the Colts. They beat up on Cleveland. They look flat against Pittsburgh. The Lions, they crushed them. They barely beat Arizona the next week. The Seahawks, and then they beat up on the Seahawks, and then the Browns the next week is not good. Miami, your team, 4-2 against the spread on the road. Lamar, only 13-19 against the spread as a favorite. Tua, is back in the MVP picture. I know you're without Mostert, you're without Waddle, and that's what's going to make it even sweeter. Tua tightens the gap, a three-man race, JJ, in week 18. Finns get the win 24-19, and then I'm sure you'll look like complete garbage against the Bills next week, but that's the best I could do for you.
Hey, listen, if the Dolphins go and beat the Baltimore Ravens, I don't care what they look like against the Buffalo Bills because they will win the AFC East. Right. I get your point on the situational spot, but no concern, Sal, without Jalen Waddle, who had a monster game in Baltimore last year, no Raheem Mostert, who set a Dolphin record for touchdowns. They're not going to have those two guys. That didn't scare you off this number?
No pressure, no worries. Don't scare me off the number. The number didn't even move. It's fishy, and it's fishy on your side. I love the points here.
Well, with your record, let's hope it continues. I can't believe it took you until week 17 to take my beloved Miami Dolphins. But you know what my response is? Better late than never. Okay, House, what do you got for our wisest wager?
Well, as you guys know, all the East Coast bias boys had the same selection for our wisest wager this week. We had a three-way thumb wrestle. Raheem won out, so he will make the case for the Indianapolis Colts. But my, second best, which is still very good, I'm looking at a team total. I'm looking at the LA Rams at the New York Giants. Not a team total, a total to the game. 43.5 is that total. And the Rams, part of this is the easy part, which is why I kind of started in. They're averaging 30 points a game over the last 5 games, which happens to coincide with all of their best skill position players getting healthy and being on the field at the same time. We're talking about Kyron and Cooper and Puka and Father Time himself, Matthew Stafford. Consider this statistical observation discussed on the famous Bill Simmons podcast this week, courtesy of our pal Warren Sharp Football Analytics. The 49ers, over the course of this season, lead the NFL in yards per play at 6.8. With all of those skill players for the Rams healthy and on the field, the Los Angeles Rams average 6.8 yards per play. So it is an elite offense. The Rams team total over the past 5 games looks like a New Year's Eve buffet filled with shrimp and crab legs and a giant prime rib carving station because Matthew Stafford has been carving up defenses. 37 points against Arizona, 36 points against Cleveland, 31 against Baltimore, 28 against Washington, 30 against New Orleans. The totals in these Rams games, 51, 55, 68, 48, 52. It's points. Now let's do the Giants. They most definitely have not quit on this season. And it is very apparent that Tyrod Taylor gives them the best chance to compete. Unlike his bottom of the basement level counterparts, that's a shout out at Tommy. Tyrod right in the middle of the pack in PFF grade and EPA efficiency. He gets to play behind a nearly healthy, fully healthy Giants offensive line. So we have a competent quarterback and a decent offensive line and a top tier play caller and a team that's playing hard. And the interesting angle to this is Tyrod can play with play action. And there are enormous splits between the effectiveness of offenses going against this Rams defense when they are able to do play action. We love this combination. 43.5 is low. We're going over for this combination of offenses, gentlemen.
Yeah, I think we'll have points in that game. And you're absolutely right. The Giant offense is going to look better with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. There's no doubt in my mind. But House, you did give us a little fake news here because Raheem Palmer, who has won 3 wisest wagers in a row, he's red hot.
Excuse me, that's 4.
Smoking. 4. See, I got it wrong. I'm giving out fake news, but 4 is the streak for Dream. But the fake news is he didn't end up going with the Colts. You're going to have to stay tuned to find out who ended up going with the Colts. But Raheem, you do have a wager for us. Let's go.
So I have won 4 straight and 4 out of my last 5. I'm like Mike Tomlin right now. I'm trying to clinch a winning season. And I'm going to put that on the line with the Kansas City Chiefs, who have lost 4 out of their last 6 games. This feels like a great buy low spot for the Chiefs. Last week, they only allowed 6 offensive points to the Raiders, and Aiden O'Connell didn't complete a single pass after the opening quarter. So they're taking on Jake Browning And this guy, like I always say, there's only so long fake thugs can pretend. This guy is on a downward trend the last 2 weeks. He's thrown 5 interceptions over the last 3 weeks. And I just feel like this is a great get back spot for the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, and this offense, which has really been struggling. And they're taking on this Bengals team, which can't stop anybody. They gave up 34 points to Mason Rudolph, 24 points to Nick Mullins, and they should have lost that game if they could have just got a quarterback sneak. So you look at this Chiefs offense, they're still 6th in offensive DVOA, 10th in success rate and EPA per play. And they're taking on this Bengals defense, which is 30th in EPA per play, 31st in success rate. They can't stop anybody. They're giving up almost 27 points per game over their last 7 contests, and they've only faced one team inside of the top 10 in offensive DVOA. I'm going to lay it with the Kansas City Chiefs -6.5. I think they're going to win this by 10 or more because I think the Bengals are done.
I love it, Raheem. I think this is a great buy low spot on the Kansas City Chiefs. That Bengal defense stinks. And if the Chief offense can't get right this week here in week 17, you got to wonder if it's ever going to get right at any point this year. Now, House wanted it. Raheem wanted it. I called dibs on it first. We'll see how that ends up working out. I love the Indianapolis Colts as my wisest wager here in week 17. And I hate going against my dude, Antonio Pierce, who should be the next head coach of the Vegas Raiders, who has had that team scratching and clawing and playing all sorts of inspired football. But let's go and look at that tape Monday against Kansas City. They won the game. They didn't diddly squat on offense. Aiden O'Connell couldn't complete a pass, for goodness sakes, in the second half of that game. That is not going to work on a short week against a team that desperately needs the game in order to get into the postseason. I've loved all year what Shane Steichen's been able to do with that Colt offense. You put the Colts back in the dome. They're at home in this particular game. And I just don't think Vegas is going to be able to do enough offensively here in order to keep up. Michael Pittman is back for the Colts. That is an enormous deal. Short week for the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders are scoring enough points here to go and cover this number. And they're coming off the win of all wins. They just won at Arrowhead Stadium for the first time in forever. I respect Antonio Pierce. Salute to Antonio Pierce. But sorry, buddy. This is going to be a family play for House, Raheem, and myself. I'm just going to take dibs on it. The Colts will win. The Colts will cover. And it's really as simple as that. All right, Sal, let's get to our SGP. You and I might be aligned for our SGPs, but they're going to be drastically different. So let's hear yours for Sunday night.
You know, first, I hate that I'm excluded from the family play with the Colts, but I just feel like, before I get to my SGP, I feel like figuring out the Raiders, it's appropriate that they're from Las Vegas, because when you leave Las Vegas, your head is in a fog. And when you look at the Raiders and try to figure out that team, it should be the same situation. What are they? They get shut out at home against Minnesota. Then they go and crush the Chargers. They put up 63. And then they beat the mighty Chiefs without completing a pass in 3 quarters. So good luck trying to figure that out. I think you're probably on the right side, but I just think they're kind of my stay away for now. But the team that we like, the game that we like, at least for same game parlay purposes, Vikings, Packers. Here's what I'm doing. Vikings plus 3.5. I'm adjusting that number. Justin Jefferson will score at least a touchdown, and I'm adjusting the game total over 41.5. I think you get about 330, 329. We talked about this Packers secondary and Joe Barry. I know House is infatuated with this guy. I don't think that changes. I don't think it matters what's going on defensively in as far as injuries go. And now they suspend Jair Alexander. Who gives a crap that he came out for the coin toss? You're battling for a playoff spot. Like I said, the secondary is in shambles. This doesn't sound like a team focused on keeping their playoff hopes alive. Jordan Love 1-3 straight up and against the spread during night games. He'll be flinging it on New Year's Eve. Meanwhile, the Vikings were game last week. Jefferson looked solid, 141 and a touchdown. He scores again. Jaron Hall, the 4th starter, I think, for the Vikings. Well, the Browns did it. 4 starters, they're going to the playoffs. Don't count the Vikings out just yet. That's my same game parlay. Vikings adjusted, over adjusted. Justin Jefferson scores a touchdown.
Yeah, I like the idea of points in that game, especially considering how crummy the Packer defense has looked all year. And listen, if you're a quarterback in Minnesota, when in doubt, get the ball to Double J. All right, guys, it's now time. Let's get made. All right, I'm going to start the proceedings with the rat line. And I'm going to look at New England and Buffalo. And I know people are going to be watching saying, hold on, JJ, what are you talking about? New England and Buffalo? This line is at 14.5. Exactly. New England has been far more spunky and has been far more competitive over the last couple weeks. They just basically knocked Denver out of the playoff race, and they sent Russell Wilson to the bench. They won in Pittsburgh outright a couple of weeks ago. So the feeling I get with this game is that New England is going to be a very popular dog with people grabbing 13, grabbing 13.5. And look at the way this line has moved. It is now 14.5. It's north of 2 touchdowns in a division game, for goodness sakes. You know what that tells me? The Buffalo Bills are going to go and lay the smackdown, which is something they did not do against the Los Angeles Chargers. This smells like a rat. I know usually we don't talk about double-digit lines fitting that rat description, but this is a public dog, a major public dog with fleas. I don't like it. It stinks. It smells like a rat. All right, Raheem, what do you got for our rat line?
I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Chargers at Denver Broncos -3. So the original look-ahead line on this game last week was Broncos -6.5. Now we're down to 3 on the news that Russell Wilson will not be starting. They're going to cut him in the spring, and Jarrett Stidham is going to start. Now, are you telling me that at this point in time, a Larry Holmes status Russell Wilson is 3.5 points better than Jarrett Stidham? I don't see. He's 27th in yards per attempt, 17th in EPA per play, 20th in success rate. So I'm not buying that drop-off. In addition, both of these teams are just so banged up. You got Courtland Sutton out. You got Jerry Jeudy with the illness. You got Marvin Mims, hamstring, questionable. You got on the other side of the ball, you got the Chargers. Keenan Allen is out. Josh Palmer is out. Joey Bosa is out. If you ask me, this is a rat. But if I had to make a lean on this game, it's probably the Broncos. But it's clear this is an over-adjustment.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And full disclosure, fellas, I may have fired an early morning bet on the Denver Broncos with Mr. Stidham at quarterback. Kind of feel like the Chargers gave you their kitchen sink effort last Saturday night against the Buffalo Bills. I was going to say on national TV, but it was buried in the Peacock game. But hey, that's the story for a different day. I don't think you get that same effort out of the Chargers. All right, House, what are we smelling as far as the rat is concerned?
Fellas, I'm looking at this line in the Arizona Cardinals that are traveling to the Philadelphia Eagles. The number is 11.5. And to me, it seems like it's based on versions of these two teams that no longer exist. They may have existed earlier in the season. They do not exist now. And I'm honestly kind of shocked. After what we just saw out of the Philadelphia Eagles against the New York Giants, that was supposed to be their get-right spot on Christmas Day, announcing to everybody that they're about to revamp, recharge, use these 3 games against the Giants and the Cardinals to get themselves healthy. That's not what we've seen. We can't see Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown get on the same page. The Eagles haven't covered a game in 5 weeks. The Eagles haven't covered a line of double digits, but twice in the last 8 occasions that they've had that. This is Jonathan Gannon's homecoming, for Christ's sakes. He can't wait to rally his troops to show the Eagles what they're missing out on. I do think the Eagles are going to win this football game, but Kyler Murray as a dog, 23-14-2 against the spread. Trey McBride, his go-to option at tight end. The Eagles have been bad against tight ends all season long. The back door is wide open here. I like Arizona, but this line to me is just crazy.
You know, it's a fascinating point on the Jonathan Gannon homecoming. The Eagles definitely miss their 2 coordinators from last year. There's no doubt. And Raheem, you were all over this Eagle regression ATS. You talked about it going into the Buffalo game and the San Francisco game. And let's be real, it's continued even the last couple of weeks. And for what it's worth, Philly should have covered that game against the Giants on Monday on Christmas Day. Had a lot of things go against them. But Raheem, you deserve a round of applause. You kind of saw this coming.
What can I say? I mean, at the end of the day, the Eagles played the easiest schedule in the league last year, and this year they had a much tougher schedule, much tougher road. So we knew that they were going to get tested at some point.
Well, we've seen it. All right, Sal, last but not least, what are we smelling for a rat?
All right, listen, if you need a rat line, you don't have to look any further than the NFC South. Nobody knows who's going to win this division. Nobody knows who's trying. There's at least three. I don't know. What would you put the over on there for new coaches next year in the NFC South? 3.5, 2.5, 3.5. It'd have to be. Well, what do you put a line for the Tampa Bay Bucks and Saints? 2.5. Why is this 2.5? Now, this is a bet House and I made for the Saints to win the division, I don't know, about 7 weeks ago, and we've regretted it since we pressed whatever we did on the computer to get it in. I won't tell you how we do this. I'm not going to tell you the method to our madness, but somehow the Saints control their own destiny. All they have to do is beat the hottest quarterback in the division on the road or cover 2.5 points. Come on, this is absurd. I know no one gets the automatic 3 at home anymore, but Tampa is better. They're averaging 31 points a game over the last 3. And the Saints have Derek Carr and barely averaged 20 over their last 3 road games. This is a Saturday night Bourbon Street rat licking up some leftover spilled hurricanes at 5 a.m. I am not buying it. Stay away from this game. House, I know you're probably betting the Buccaneers here, and it's probably smart, but 2.5? What are they trying to make us do here?
I have to bet on the Buccaneers. I have to try and salvage something from our enormous miscalculation. Gambling on Dennis Allen and Derek Carr, that's a double D disaster, Cousin Sal. I don't know I blame the Podfather. He should have scared us off.
I know,
but,
he really did.
This
smells
here
like
we are.
22-20. It really does.
You're absolutely right.
It's just amazing to me that we are living in a world. There's someone that saw Todd Bowles coach the New York Jets, and you guys all watched Baker Mayfield for years in Cleveland. The coach and quarterback that, without question, I trust the most in the NFC South is Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield. But I get your point, Sal, because this line is begging you to take Tampa. It's an obvious play to take Tampa. I know all of the sharps are going to be on the New Orleans Saints. I'm just warning all of the numbers guys and all the sharp guys out there. You're betting on Dennis Allen and you're betting on Derek Carr. Good luck. That's all I'm going to say. Good luck. All right, Dream. SGP time. What do you got for us, buddy?
I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Rams money line. Total points over 43.5. Kyron Williams, anytime touchdown, and Cooper Kupp over 5.5 receptions. That pays plus 481. You look at this Rams offense, they are rolling. 32.4 points per game in the last 5 games. They've gone over in 4 out of their last 5. So we know that they're going to be able to score some points, but they also give up some points, about 22 points per game over the last 4 or 5 games. So I think the Giants are going to be able to score. So that's an easy over right there. House already highlighted that. The Rams are going to win this game. Matthew Stafford is rolling right now. But when you look at 2 of these props, you look at Kyron Williams. He scored 12 touchdowns this season. He's found the end zone in 7 out of his 11 games. And the Giants have allowed 13 rushing touchdowns to running backs this year, which is the 5th most in the NFL this season. They're allowing very efficient games to running backs. So I expect Kyron Williams to score. And then you look at Cooper Kupp. I mean, this guy is Matthew Stafford's best friend. He's going to get the target. He's averaging 9.5 targets per game over the last 4 games. And he's hit over 5.5 receptions the last 4 games. So that's my same game parlay. Hopefully that cashes and we, bring that into the new year.
I like the sound of that, Raheem. And listen, for somebody that may have an investment in the Rams at plus 450 to make the playoffs, I'm rooting for House. I'm rooting for you. I want to be cashing that baby as I'm popping open a bottle of bubbly, maybe at around 11:30, 11:45 tonight. Anyway, let's get to a little Wise Guys. Please advise. What do we have coming up for the boys? Here it is. Let's close out 2023 with an easy win. I have an anytime touchdown parlay. This is right up your alley, Raheem. Kyron Williams and Saquon Barkley. Little under 2-1. I like the payout right there. Are you with me? Slick Rick in Pennsylvania. So, Sal, Kyron Williams has been finding the end zone. Saquon Barkley, since he's come back from the injury, he too has been finding the end zone. We like this parlay?
I kind of do. Go get it, Slick Rick. Why not? I think Williams has scored in 2 of his last 3. I think even Barkley scored in 2 of his last 3. Williams 5 of his last 8. It's just tough rooting for Giants points. It really is. So good luck with that. But I think you're on the right side.
House, we in?
Well, of course, because I'm on the over in this game. And I do think that there is a profound impact on the Giants offense of having a competent veteran who knows how to run things tempo-wise. I think that will translate into more opportunities for the Giants, and that means Saquon gets touchdown looks. That's the only part of it that concerns me. Kyron is getting his. I'm not worried about the Rams scoring points.
Well, boys, as far as guest pick number 1 is concerned, Sal, this is a part of the degenerate trifecta. He is a guy that I know quite well. I hope to see him at some point, considering he doesn't live too far from me. Who will be joining us here on Ringer Wise Guys?
Well, yeah, like you said, he's a lifelong friend of mine, my QB1 in high school. And sure, he's a little disillusioned like you, JJ, and all other Yankee and Knick fans. But I'll say this about the Parlay Kid. His brother Bry, also on Against All Odds, and his son, Mikey Meatballs, came on here and gave winners over the last couple weeks. So we like to talk about the family influence. Maybe we should pay attention. Here's Darren Zaccoli, the Parlay Kid.
Hey, Ringer Wise guys, it's the Parlay Kid here, giving you my pick for this week, and it's going to be Travis Kelce, over 63.5 yards receiving. Did you know that Travis Kelce was the most bet on NFL player this year? So let's go with him one more time before this year comes to an end. Cincinnati Bengals have trouble containing elite tight ends. Kelce is still elite. He'll get it done this week. Take Travis Kelce and the over 63.5 yards at minus 114. Happy New Year, gentlemen. Let's have a great 2024.
Well, I appreciate the Happy New Year wishes. I have to be honest, though, Raheem. Travis Kelce, way too overvalued in the betting market right now. I'm staying away from Travis Kelce props.
You know, I typically want to stay away, but I just think this Bengals defense is just so abysmal that this is the week to play him. So I'm going to roll with the Parlay Kid. I think he's going to nail this one.
You like it, Sal?
Yeah, well, I think Raheem's right. I mean, there's 6 touchdowns allowed for tight ends by the Bengals. Not great ones either if you look at it. I'm going to ride with them. I'm just so mad at Kelce and Taylor for destroying 2 of my fantasy teams this year, but I'll ride it.
Wow, look at you siding against the Swifties. It's all Taylor's fault. I didn't expect that of you, Sal. I thought as a man of Hollywood, as a man of Jimmy Kimmel, you'd give Miss Swift a little bit of a break. Clearly, that's not the case.
She
We're
ruined
looking
it all.
for any excuse we can make.
Yeah, that's right.
Sounds about right. We got a lot more coming up here in this Week 17 edition of Ringer Wise Guys. We will have Man's Best Bet. Do we have another chunky dog that's coming your way? We got more SGPs and our family meal. All that more. It's right here. Getting you ready for the start of the new year on FanDuel TV. Welcome back to Ringer Wise Guys right here on FanDuel TV, and we will start off the new year right next week with that outstanding lineup of programming when it comes to helping you find winners. On Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern, it'll be Raheem Palmer, Joe House, and John Jastremski diving into all the ins and outs on East Coast bias. And then on Friday, I don't know what quarterback Cousin Sal will have next on the show. Will it be Bernie Kosar? Will it be Dan Marino? Will it be Scott Mitchell? I don't know. But Sal and a cast of thousands will have you set.
Tua,
week
MVP.
18. Well, hopefully Tua decides to join the show. But if he's joining the show, I want to be invited. That's all there is to it. But Cousin Sal's winning weekend, that's coming your way Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Look at that lineup, JJ. That's like
Right
Mad
here.
About You and Friends back to back.
I was going to
beautiful.
say, I think it's
CFP.
more like Murderer's Row as far as, Ruth Gehrig and anybody you're going to put in the 27 Yankee lineup, but that's all coming your way on FanDuel TV. All right, it's time for a guest pick. As you can tell, I'm making sure we have it right. Jomi, you got our guest pick number 2. Pick me a winner. What do you got, buddy?
Wise guys, what's going on? It's me, Jomi. Hope you guys had a great holidays. I know I had a good one because I was watching Lamar give a lump of coal to the 49ers on Christmas. So now I just want to ride this wave, They've got a big game against the Dolphins next week. Should I, go total TDs? Should I go over passing yards? Or should I just spend all my money on Lamar for MVP right now? Wise guys, please advise.
I appreciate that, Jomi. There's a lot to dive into. Raheem, I'll say this right out of the gate. There's no way in the world I'm laying minus 200 on any MVP future. I don't care if it's hitting or not. That's just a bad bet.
Well, it is a bad bet for multiple reasons. Lamar Jackson, look, the Ravens they're going to clinch the number 1 seat in the AFC. But Lamar Jackson's not having an MVP season. I'm sorry. I love Lamar Jackson to death, but Dak Prescott and 3 other quarterbacks are having better seasons than Lamar Jackson. And, look, I think he's buying into the hype. Last week, the Raiders went into San Francisco and dominated that 49ers team. But a lot of it was their defense. So to come back after that performance and lay minus 200, I think you're just making a bad bet. And then also for the yards over 230, it just feels like you're buying at the peak of the market. And Lamar Jackson, look, you look at that game against the Jaguars. He only had 171 passing yards in that game. So this is not a guy who has to dominate by throwing the ball in order to win. He could, throw for 150 and run for 150. So I don't like this bet at all.
And this MVP market has been thrown house completely out of whack. And listen, I thought the love for Brock Purdy was maybe a little bit absurd, but you're telling me after one game, Brock Purdy drops to like 9-1, 10-1, 11-1, and now Lamar Jackson, who was barely sniffing MVP consideration as of a week or two ago, now he's minus 200 to win the award. It just seems silly to me, House.
Well, he was in the top 5 for a good long stretch here, Lamar Jackson I'm talking about. And I don't have any issue whatsoever with Brock Purdy falling off a cliff. It was the case that the voting public and the market, adjusted this way, treated that Ravens 49ers heads up as the referendum on MVP for the season. That's why we have these numbers. I don't mind Lamar. I think that the combination of passing yards and rushing yards that he's going to end up with this season will make him a 1 of 1 in the history of the NFL, even though on their own standing, neither one of them is going to make him, top notch. But that combination, and that really speaks to this Ravens offense and what Lamar means to it. So I can live with Lamar as the MVP. The price is terrible. Don't spend minus 200.
I gotta put something into context because Lamar Jackson's full season touchdown over under was like 24.5. He's not even going to hit that. He has 19 touchdowns right now.
That's a great point. I haven't heard that explained that way. That's great. And I don't think we have ever seen a MVP switch with 2 weeks left as drastically as the minus 250 for Purdy to 19-1, JJ. When Simmons and I did guess the lines last week, it's gone down because people have, there's been a moment of realization here. and I know he had a terrible game, but House is right. We are manipulated our minds into thinking, okay, whatever the last thing we saw is the best thing. But Raheem points out 3 or 4 quarterbacks have similar, including Baker Mayfield, have similar stats to Lamar Jackson. So that's why, as far as Jomi's picks goes, I'm not going to go with that future. I'm also not going to go for the passing touchdowns over. I might go for passing yards over 230.5. Raheem's right. It is high. But if we speak to the narrative of how I think this game is going to go, I think the Dolphins are up 14-3. I think he has to get there, back there in the pocket. And by the way, wasn't this 42-38 last season, JJ? Some crazy score last year, wasn't it, between these two teams?
It was a crazy score. Lamar and Tua both had insane games. Miami was able to overcome a 21-point fourth-quarter Raven lead. I don't think it's going to be that kind of game this year. The Miami defense, the strategy implemented by Vic Fangio, it's going to be drastically different. You had that fool Josh Boyer, just basically zero blitzing Lamar every single chance he got. It did not work out. It failed miserably. I think this game goes under the total. It almost was my wisest wager of the week. I get your point, Sal, on the passing yards. That I can see. I can't see this game in the high 30s, low 40s, especially with no Jalen Waddle for the Miami Dolphins. Now, let's take a look and take an eye on the future as far as the AFC South is concerned. We know that Jacksonville, we're going to Offensive Player of the Year first. See, that's
Come
what
on,
happens. I get my
JJ.
order completely out of whack. Just blame me. It's all right. I want a mulligan. Is it Silver Lake on the first tee and I hit it 50 feet? Can I have the mulligan, please? Thank you. I will take it. McCaffrey, Offensive Player of the Year at -250. Tyreek is at +175. You know, House, looking at these odds, I'd be stunned if McCaffrey doesn't win the award. But if we have a vintage Tyreek Hill game without Waddle, and we're talking about Tyreek going for, let's say, 190, maybe scores a couple of touchdowns, can you make the case of jumping on that +175?
I cannot. And the reason is because Christian McCaffrey is going up against the Washington Seawards defense today. And so whatever we see out of Tyreek, it will be matched, I anticipate, by McCaffrey. The only thing that will stop McCaffrey from multiple touchdowns and 150 yards is his head coach saying, we are up by 3 scores. Let's protect Christian McCaffrey. Let's let him he might get there in the first half. So that would be my concern. I think whereas we said laying -200 with Lamar for MVP seems like a stretch. I don't mind laying the juice with McCaffrey. I think he's going to get there.
Raheem, any way Hill can win this award or no?
Yes. You saw the game last year. 11 receptions, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns. He smoked that Ravens defense. And I think the thing that you have to consider is that the 49ers, they have this thing pretty much all the way wrapped up. They're taking on the Commanders. You win one more game or so, and you pretty much have the 1 seed locked up in the NFC. Well, the Dolphins have to play for the division. So the next 2 games are more crucial for the Dolphins than it is for the 49ers. And if Tyreek Hill lights it up, he has a real chance of winning this award if Christian McCaffrey, they decide to just limit his workload.
Yeah, I kind of agree with I agree with both these guys, honestly. I mean, I feel like McCaffrey and the 49ers can name their score today against Washington. Brock Purdy's going to be like, I told you, idiots, McCaffrey was the MVP. Now get off my back. I'm going to feed him the ball at the goal line. But I also feel Tyreek could go crazy, and he will have to if my my prediction bears out. But here's the thing I'll say about Tyreek. If you like him to win this award, I would bet him to score this week at -110 and then roll it over into Offensive Player of the Year if you still like it.
Dolphins are going to be looking a ton of Tyreek Hill, no Jalen Waddle. Remember that? And listen, Tyreek Hill, even on that gimpy ankle, still went for 90 yards and 9 catches against Dallas a week ago. I expect a monster performance.
I can't hear you. I got a bad connection.
You're forgetting about that. No. Just like you're forgetting about the officiating at the end of the Detroit-Dallas
game.
Hear again, that's a story for a different day. Let's get to this AFC South. No Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be C.J. Beathard at quarterback. They're playing the Carolina Panthers. We talked about the Colts in their game against the Raiders. The Texans get C.J. Stroud back, and C.J. Stroud will be suiting up against the Tennessee Titans. House, I know we have tried to make the case for somebody other than Jacksonville almost all year to go and win this division. Jacksonville, they get one more game. They're sitting pretty. They're going to win this thing, no matter what they've looked like down the stretch of this year. You see any value with the Colts or the Texans at this stage in the game?
Of those three teams, I prefer the Colts. And the reason is because I think today will be determinative in terms of the fortunes for the Jaguars. I'm forecasting, I will say on this show that I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to lose to the Carolina Panthers today. And that opens the door wide open for a Houston-Indianapolis Week 18 mano-a-mano for the AFC South. The Colts, as you've already articulated, JJ, beloved by myself, by the dream, by you. So they take care of business against the Raiders at that price, nearly 3-1. Let me go ahead and speculate a little bit.
Raheem, would you fire?
I wouldn't fire. And the reason why is because if Jacksonville wins today and the other two teams lose, this is over. And I just don't think you're getting a good enough price in order to make this worth it. The Jags are minus 136 to win this division for a reason. The Colts are almost plus 300 and the Texans are plus 370. So you basically need them to win out. And I'd rather would just play those games and try to roll it over than, play the divisional price at this point.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, you could hate on CJ Beathard all you want, but the Jags are home against the worst team in the league, right? So all they need to do is win. As Raheem said, these other two can take care of themselves. The bet I like better than to win the division, because I think that's going to be rough. Colts to make the playoffs at plus 104 at this point. They're both about the same size favorite this week, them and the Texans. Plus, Indy is home against the Texans in a game that could be played on Sunday night. That's what's interesting. That could be, the last few years, the networks have had trouble. The league has had trouble finding a standalone game that isn't dependent on any other game where both teams can be eliminated or make the playoffs. This could be the Collinsworth special next Sunday night, Texans-Colts.
And if you had that on your bingo card at the beginning of the year, you're a richer man than me. Imagine that Indianapolis and Houston, the final regular season game in week number 18. And that possibility is most certainly alive and well. Okay, House, it's now time for you to get on board. You got an SGP for us. We heard from Raheem. We heard from Sal. Now it's your turn. What do you got, bud?
Well, we teased this game a little bit already, so I'll just call this the Square Same Game parlay of the day. And it features the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're going to try and make it uncomplicated. We're just going to take the Buccaneers on the money line. Like, I understand what the sharps are looking at. The Bucs are coming in here off 4 straight wins. Baker throws himself into comeback player of the year contention. It's a classic sell high spot. But guess what I'm not buying? Dennis Allen or Derek Carr. We've already made the point. The Saints defense has not been playing well when they're not playing the Panthers or the Giants at home. The last 4 games they go on the road and go up against offenses, they're giving up at least 24 points a game. The Bucs have scored at least 29 points in 3 straight. They're hitting their stride offensively. So Bucs money line is the first leg of this. Rachaad White over 22.5 receiving yards. He's over this in 4 straight games. He went over this in the first meeting with the Saints. He's over this in 9 of 10. He has a long reception of 20 or more yards in 7 of his last 10 games. And then Baker over 1.5 passing touchdowns. He had 3 touchdowns against this Saints team in New Orleans earlier this year. The Bucs run game inside the red zone is still spotty. Baker and his wide receivers are firing on all engines. He's hit this over in 7 of his last 9 games. He's got 9 total touchdowns the last 3 weeks. He's obviously hit this 3 straight weeks. So we are on this Bucs 3-legger. It pays plus 449.
It may be square, but I like it, House. I'm sorry. I do. I think you're rolling with the right side in this game. Tampa Bay has been cooking offensively. I think they'll be able to continue to keep cooking, even against a pretty good New Orleans Saints defense. All right, guys, it's now time. Let's get barking with Man's Best Bet. All right, Sal, you're barking with one of the more intriguing games of the day that we have not touched on yet. The floor is yours. What's Man's Best Bet?
Here we go. Steelers plus 160, JJ. And I think we have a little dog, like a Ben Roethlisberger dog. What is that? Like
Nice.
5 years of Steelers quarterback woes and continue. A Rottweiler, Roethlisberger. We need a Pop-Tart dog. Everything's coming up Pop-Tart this week. But anyway, in honor of my son, Jack, who roots for the Steelers for reasons unbeknownst to me, let's take the steel curtain. Both teams obviously need a win. Rudolph, though, 3-0. On extended rest. Nobody picks apart tired defenses like Mason. Okay, maybe others do too. But anyway, Geno, after a straight up win, only 5-8. I think he turns the ball over against his hungry Steelers defense. The Pittsburgh running game makes them pay. Jaylen Warren, big game. Steelers keep their playoff hopes alive. 27-23. Give me the plus money, JJ.
And the Pittsburgh Steelers fighting for this idea of keeping Mike Tomlin without a losing record. They play Baltimore in week 18. They go and win this week. Well, the Steelers are going to be on their way to maybe avoiding that winning or losing record yet again. All right, Raheem, what do we got? Man's best bet.
Okay, we're going to go with the Buster Douglas dog. I'm going to choose one of the biggest dogs of the week. I am behind on the scorecards. I need a knockout to just get myself into contention. So I'm going to Arizona Cardinals plus 530 to defeat the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know what it is, but it feels like Arizona is like the house of horrors for Philadelphia. You look at the Philadelphia Phillies. We got eliminated by the Arizona Diamondbacks. You look at the Arizona Cardinals. They've always given this Eagles team trouble. And this is a Jonathan Gannon revenge spot. So, look, I know this Cardinals team isn't full of talent, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. But the one thing I will say is that this Eagles defense is abysmal. 23rd in defensive DVOA, 30th in third down conversions against. They were 14th in sacks going into week 16. You look at last year with Jonathan Gannon, they were first in sacks with 70, third most in NFL history, and they were 14th on third down. So this defense has declined without Jonathan Gannon. I think Jonathan Gannon, he knows this Eagles defense inside and out. Maybe they know him, but I got to take a shot on it just because I look at this Eagles team. They are not what they were last year. I'm pretty sure everybody's going to be picking the Eagles to win the day. I think the Cardinals cover, but for the sake of this segment, I got to take a shot on them. We'll see what happens. It's a long shot, but I think this will be a close game.
Slow count, Raheem. Iron Mike should have won that game. Should have won that fight. Slow count.
He's swinging big, baby. Listen, sometimes you got to swing big on Ringer Wise, guys, and you're going with a double-digit underdog to win the game outright. It's hard not to respect it. All right, guys, my underdog is not nearly as significant. It's not the same size as what we just saw with Raheem's. We're going with a miniature dog. After going with a big dog last week, I like the Atlanta Falcons winning this game outright against the Chicago Bears. I just think there is just way too much Chicago Bear love at the moment. And I understand we're talking about an Atlanta team that you can't trust. I know Atlanta has betrayed me a lot of different occasions on this particular show. But the fact that Desmond Ridder has been moved to the bench and they have put House's favorite quarterback, Taylor Heineke, in, I think it gives them more stability. I think you saw that last week in their big win against the Indianapolis Colts. Atlanta looked like a different team. This is a team, if they like their head coach, they're fighting for his job as far as I'm concerned. They're going to lose this game to the Chicago Bears. We talk about loser leaves town. I think for a coach, whether it's Eberflus with Chicago or Arthur Smith, I think the loser of this game is probably going to be on the unemployment line next year. They might both be on the unemployment line. Who the hell do I know? But I'm going to say that Atlanta, small dog, way too much Chicago love. They go and win outright and keep their playoff hopes alive in the woeful NFC South. All right, House, last but not least, let's get barking.
Well, somebody called this team the worst team in the NFL. I beg to differ. I am going right back. This is the third straight week that I am going with the Carolina Panthers on the money line. Since this Panthers team got rid of Frank Reich, they've been competitive. They are at Jacksonville. Jacksonville is coming in dead man walking. Their defense is under duress. They are without Trevor Lawrence. The Panthers, on the other hand, 2 3-point losses, a 2-point win, and a loss to the Saints where halfway through the fourth quarter they were down by 1 score. The Panthers and Jacksonville are in the same class offensively since week 13. That is to say, since Frank Reich got fired. And Bryce Young just put together his best game as a professional against a putrid Green Bay defense. Well, guess what? This Jaguars defense is bottom 5 against the pass by most metrics over the last 6 weeks, and opponents have thrown for the 4th most often against them. So I think my guy, Bryce Young, takes that momentum from last week. The Panthers defense with J.C. Horn, 10-5 against the spread over the last 15 games. The Panthers defense in general, they're healthier. They're in better shape than the Jags. I'm with the Panthers on the money line. One more time.
Boy, I hope Bill Simmons isn't watching this, because he hates when Joe House flops on Frank Reich, and yet he has done it once again. I can't believe it. This makes like 25 times.
It's amazing, Sal. Our buddy Joe House just can't quit the Carolina Panthers. All right, last but not least, guys, I got an SGP, and I'm saving it for the last game of 2023, the Packers and the Vikings. I know Sal has an SGP in this one. I'm playing a little differently. Packers, I think they're going to win the game. I think Minnesota defeated another quarterback change, another close loss. Now you got a division team coming in. I think the younger upstart Packers, they'll be ready to go in this game. Line moving in my favor. Justin Jefferson, you can't bet against that guy. He's going to have at least 80 receiving yards. And then I'll take A.J. Dillon to go and find pay dirt. This parlay, juicy, little over 8-1. Let's cash it and ring in 2024 the right way. All right, guys, it's now time to get in the kitchen, get in the lab, get in wherever we're going to get in, and let's start working up our family meal. It's back. We exchanged gifts last week, but now we're back in the kitchen. House, you love giving us an appetizer right out of the gate. Let's start.
Yeah, we're going to start off this New Year Eve with a beautiful tortellini appetizer. This is the tortellini team total, 2-team parlay. We're putting together the Los Angeles Rams over 24.5 against the Giants. We're putting that together. I just made the case the Carolina Panthers over 16.5. If you take those team totals and put them together, these beautiful spinach tortellini with a little sausage-filled tortellini, a beautiful marriage, plus 267. You know the case for the Rams. All they do is score 30 points every time they put that offense on the field. The Carolina Panthers team total at 16.5 is very shy. We just watched them put up 30 against the Green Bay defense. This Jags defense is in the same position. I like Bryce Young, the progress that he's made. 2-team tortellini parlay. What a way to start off the meal of the new year.
So I love tortellini. I don't know if I love anything involving the Carolina offense, but hey, House, it's your contribution, not mine. Raheem, what do we have, buddy?
You know, I'm trying to eat light for the new year. Y'all know I'm only 135 pounds, 130 pounds, but I'm still eating light. We're going to go with a salmon and spinach salad. Steelers, Seahawks total points under 40.5. You look at the Steelers. Mason Rudolph, he put up 34 points on the Bengals. The Bengals, they allow the most explosive plays in the NFL and the highest average depth of target. Well, things changed this week against the Seahawks. 15th in explosive pass plays and 9th in average depth of target. So this is going to be a lot different for Mason Rudolph and that Steelers offense. And look, they put up 34 points last week, but you look at their last 5 previous games against the Browns, the Bengals, the Cardinals, the Patriots, and the Colts. They put up 10 points, 16 points, 10 points, 18 points, and 13 points. They're not going to score a ton. And I think the Steelers defense will do enough to hold down the Seahawks. So let's go under 40.5.
All right, guys. 2-team parlay, 2-team tease, excuse me. Let's get it right. House is throwing in parlays. I'm throwing in a tease to our particular family meal. I'm going to tease down a favorite. I'm going to tease up a dog, and I'm going to bring a little beef cubano, a little barbecue style to the proceedings. I'm getting the Miami Dolphins to 9.5. The line is at 3.5. I'm going to tease them up to 9.5. Raheem hit on it earlier. This is a game Miami needs for the division. I can't see this game being totally lopsided. I think Miami will stay within that 9.5 number. And then I'm taking Kansas City. All they got to do is win the game. If Kansas City cannot win this game against the Cincinnati Bengals, then when are we going to see the Kansas City Chiefs go and put it together at any point the rest of this NFL season? So I know they lost on Monday. I know right now public opinion is soured on the Chiefs. I think this is a good opportunity for a 2-team tease. Fins up to 9.5. Chiefs down to pick them. I like the sound of that. I think it's going to taste great. And away we go. Not House. House already contributed his appetizer. Sal,
House, go again. What do you got? Let House go again. Honestly, because the food thing is getting me crazy too. I'm with Raheem. I'm going to call this the chocolate ice cream because it's an old reliable. But the truth is I have to lose like 94 pounds next year. So, Raheem, put me on a diet. I want to be able to bench 3 times my weight like you. But for now, Jalen Hurts, Christian McCaffrey, both to score, -140. Bust out the Dom Perignon. This was plus money last week. We couldn't understand why. And now it's -140. But we're going to pay out some good money here. Treat yourself right. You know they're going to give McCaffrey the ball in the last-ditch effort to win MVP. Push, 100 waiting for Jalen Hurts. There you go. I don't mind being repetitive with my picks. Beyonce doesn't get crap for singing Single Ladies in concert over and over, and she shouldn't. Winners keep winning, and you will too with this parlay.
And I can't believe you got that at plus money last week. Talk about highway robbery. That was the definition
every week
of highway robbery.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. All right, guys, let's take a look at the injury board. Who's in, who's out for Week 17 before we say goodbye? Kenneth Walker in for the Seattle Seahawks. Josh Jacobs out for the Vegas Raiders. Trevor Lawrence, no surprise there, out for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Sal, in order to win your wisest wager, you're going to have to do it without Jalen Waddle and without the touchdown man, Raheem Mostert. I know a lot of fantasy owners like myself not particularly happy about that news. And I got one more I can add to that list. Kyle Hamilton not going to play for the Baltimore Ravens. So maybe that opens things up for Tyreek Hill in the secondary. So we got a lot more coming your way on our digital streams and digital platforms. You ready for the college football playoffs, Sal? I love these games this week.
Let's do it. I'm excited. Put that ugliness from yesterday behind us and move forward to the real big boy stuff. I agree.
And just a little tease, Raheem and I, we're going to be heads up and mano-a-mano in the big game of the day. Ain't that right, Raheem?
Yeah, we're definitely going to be heads up, but I think you might need to opt out.
Oh, we don't opt out of anything around here. We don't have that attitude. That sounds like a Cousin Sal special to maybe opt out of a pick. We don't have to worry about that. I don't opt out of anything around here.
I'm opting out of digital time. Good night.
Yeah, so we will not see you for the college football picks. That's it. You have decided you're like Florida State. You're opting out of the bowl game.
That's right. I'm gonna cry. I'm behind my tears. I'm gonna sit down and watch us lose by 60 collectively.
Hey, listen. Thank goodness we didn't have to see Florida State in the college football playoffs. Sorry, Seminoles fans. It was the right thing to do. We will have picks for the college football playoff. We will have a lot more coming your way if you tune in on YouTube, on Twitter, on all that good stuff we have cooking. For Cousin Sal, Joe House, Raheem Palmer, and John Jastremski, Happy New Year, one and all. We'll see you on Digital Time. We'll see you back on FanDuel TV next week for Week 18. It's bonus time. The Ring of Wise guys, we're ready to go for Week 17. Happy New Year, one and all. It's Cousin Sal, Joe House, Raheem Palmer, and John Jastremski. We have looked into all the ins and outs for this slate of matchups. You know, Cousin Sal, you might have moved the number. I'm just saying. I'm looking on FanDuel right now. I'm seeing Miami down to 3. Good thing you got that
Come
hook.
on. I mean, honestly, now this is like maybe a rat game. Between Waddle and Mostert, you're giving up 27 touchdowns and the line moved down a half a point. I still love your Fins.
But you know what? You got some bad injury news for Baltimore. I mean,
Right.
Raheem, not having Kyle Hamilton is massive for the Ravens on that defense. That is a huge deal.
Oh, it's definitely a huge deal. I mean, the sharp money is all on Miami. And when you look at how the Ravens have performed after big games this season, I think they've lost nearly all of them. So it's just, I understand it. So I think your Miami Dolphins might be going home with the win today.
I'll tell you that if that's the case, I will have a big bottle of champagne. I may go find myself a Victory Cubano cigar, and I might be having one hell of a night in Brooklyn if indeed that happens. That's a story for a different day. Now, let's get to some honorable mentions, some games we didn't touch on as far as the spread is concerned in the hour-long television program. Guys, Texans, Titans. The Titans historically have been a very good dog under Mike Vrabel. They're clearly not the same team this year. Texans, they get C.J. Stroud back at quarterback. I think it's a good spot for the Texans house. I do. But I guess the only question you would have here is C.J. Stroud going to be maybe a little rusty coming back off the concussion? That to me is the million-dollar question in kind of breaking this game down, and it's why, quite frankly, I'm staying away from it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. The trend line for quarterbacks coming out of concussion protocol has been stay away because they're not quite firing on all cylinders. Now, we don't know whether the fact that he spent an extra week, CJ Stroud, on the protocol was to get him 100% right. So he might come out firing. The Titans without Jeffrey Simmons and already a pass funnel defense should be something that helps the Texans get going again. And I think Nico is either 100% healthy or trending in that direction, which is very good for the Texans. But to me, I don't want to mess around with all the uncertainty that's in this number.
Yeah, uncertainty for sure. And this is why this game only appealed to me when I had to circle it in one of the many pools I'm in, right? I think I closed my eyes and circled the Titans here, who have not been good to me. I can't figure out Derrick Henry. He'll run for 15 carries. He'll take 15 carries and not get 20 yards or something crazy like that. And then the next week he bounces back like gangbusters. And I do worry a little bit about how long it took CJ Stroud to get out of the concussion protocol. So I would just take the points here. But this is not one of the top 10 games I would lean on.
Raheem, where do you stand on this?
So I like the Texans at an earlier number. I think this is up to 5 right now. I think you could have got it at like 3.5, 4 earlier this week. Like, these two teams played a couple weeks ago, and Will Levis wasn't able to move the ball. Outside of that pick 6, the Texans defense really held down this unit. So I think with CJ Stroud coming back, he's able to attack this Titans pass defense. And I just think they're an advantageous position. But the thing I don't like about it is that it's just a lot of times, typically you see these teams trying to get into the postseason, facing teams that don't have anything to play for, and it feels like you're paying a premium. So I probably would stay away from this one as well.
All right, guys, we hit on Rams Giants a ton from a standpoint of points, from a standpoint of up and down, a lot of action, a lot of excitement. But as far as the number in this game, I'll go to you on this one first, House, because you like points. But would you feel comfortable laying the number with the Rams going West Coast to East Coast?
I'm not so worried about that travel element of it because the Rams have extra rest. And not only do they played on that Thursday night, they got to be with their family during Christmas Eve and Christmas, like no practice. So I think that they're going to be recharged. I don't think it's a bad travel spot for them. I just think it's potentially too many points because of how this Giants team is competing. And I think that Tyrod Taylor is just an unknown quantity going up against this Rams defense. I don't mind the Rams on the road laying 3, something like that, but 6 feels like too many. And if you look at the against the spread numbers for both Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay as road favorites at this juncture of the season, they're not good numbers. So feels a little rich to me.
Sal, I think the Giants are alive in this game. I don't think they win outright. I would take them plus the 6 or 6.5. I think they cover the number.
I'm with you. And the fact that in 2023, almost 2024, we're talking about grown men traveling in first class seats for 4.5 hours and not being able to figure it out because they what could they do? They have to play cards for a few hours or watch a movie or whatever, or watch the Barbie movie. God, give me a break. I don't think the travel has anything to do with it. I think the Giants are going to play a little gutty down the stretch these last couple of games. And, House made a great case for that Rams offense being amongst the top 1, 2, 3. Who knows? But I think it's a different story on the road. They eke out a win. I like them better as a teaser team than anything else.
All right, guys, let's get a viewer email. It's time to advise. So, wise guys, please advise. What's up, wise guys? I have an intriguing one here. All season, it has seemed like the comeback player of the year award could only go to DeMar Hamlin. He's still at minus 165. But after the Browns clinched a playoff berth, Joe Flacco moved to plus 130. Is this actually possible? Jay doesn't like the Steelers. He's in Cincinnati. Raheem, it seemed like a fait accompli all year that the NFL is going to make sure that DeMar Hamlin, after what happened to him a year ago, is going to get comeback player of the year. But Joe Flacco was on his couch for the first 8 weeks of this year. Sal, unlike the players flying West Coast to East Coast, I think Joe Flacco was sitting in coach a couple weeks ago on his way to Cleveland. There was some documentation of that on like a Delta flight or whatnot. So now that he's got the Brownies in the postseason, it is an incredible story. It is a whole lot of fun. Raheem, can he win comeback player of the year?
Yes, he can win comeback player of the year. And if you look at FanDuel Sportsbook right now, DeMar Hamlin is minus 125. Joe Flacco is plus 125. And I saw an interesting stat the other day. Joe Flacco is the first player in NFL history to record at least 250 passing yards and 2 touchdown passes in each of his first 5 games with the team. He's been exceptional. And it's just at the end of the day, look, I think he deserves comeback player of the year award, but I think along with that, you got to give Kevin Stefanski coach of the year. This guy
Lock it up. I totally agree. Totally agree.
4 different quarterbacks.
4 different quarterbacks. You paid Deshaun Watson $10 zillion. He stunk when he was on the field. Then he goes and gets hurt. To get Joe Flacco playing at this level. Sal, I watched Joe Flacco last year with the Jets. He looked disinterested playing football. Maybe it's because he was with the Jets. Maybe it's because his offensive line stunk. But now I got Joe Flacco looking like he's 2013 Flacco, slinging it down the field, making big plays. Yeah, Stefanski better get coach of the year.
I'm with you. I think as a policy, if you're on your 4th quarterback and you get double-digit wins, you should win regardless of who the other 31 coaches are. But I have mixed reactions with this award. I mean, first of all, it's all over the place, right? You have a guy who was dead on the field less than a year ago, and that guy suited up this season. That should be enough. But on the other hand, Flacco was also dead because he was a member of the New York Jets. So that's almost even worse than being dead. And then you have Baker coming on strong, but I feel like you have to wait. If the Tampa Bay ends up 8-9, he can't really get it either. It's such a crazy award. But let me just ask you this. As far as the genre goes for the wise guys, you remember in Goodfellas when Paulie says, we're not animal. You got to stay with your wife, right? Said, we're not animal. Give it to Hamlin, for God's sakes. We are not animal. The guy was dead on the field. What are we talking about?
I might be because I want to give it to Joe Flacco house. Just saying. That might
I think Joe Flacco actually plays football.
Yeah.
With all due respect.
I think that Hamlin already won all that he needed to win, which was surviving that episode. And on top of that, his charity, received an outpouring of generosity unprecedented from this country, so that he's in the right spot. If we're talking about football performance, to me, the right play here is Baker. Now, Cousins' point is right. Let's just wait and see how it plays out. But the fair way to do this is to give Stefanski coach of the year and give Baker Mayfield comeback player of the year, because that's in recognition of the success over the entire course of the season. It's awesome to see Joe Flacco competing this way back in football, but Baker did it all season long. And if you look at the forecasted win totals between the Browns and the Bucs, there's no comparison. The Browns were expected to be a double-digit win team. The Bucs were expected to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, fellas.
House, let me just ask you one thing. Be consistent here, because you're a Commanders fan who was then a football team fan, and before that a Redskins fan. When Alex Smith was up for this award, there were more worthy players than Alex Smith, people who had more prominent success in the league. Were you an Alex Smith guy when this came up?
No, I didn't think that he deserved it.
At least he's consistent,
All right.
Sal.
I like
admire that.
Hey, he's
I
on his
admire
own.
that.
Like that.
He's animal. He's still animal, but he's consistent.
Of course he is,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's like always hitting 12 against 2 in blackjack. You can't
That's
be
right.
wishy-washy with it. You always
All right.
got to do it, or you either got to just always stay
Always
away.
hate the
All right.
near deaths or amputations. I like the consistency.
I look forward to the communal blackjack table in a few weeks in Vegas. That'll be a hit. All right, when we come back, we'll have Austin Gale. We'll have picks on a college football playoff, which we can't wait to do. But the extra point taking guys, they have been reunited. Great to see Shield feeling better. Solak and Shield, picks for week 17. Let's go, boys. What do you got?
Locks of the week, Solak. I got it.
How do you feel?
Thanks.
We go live to Shield Kapadia. Shield, how are you feeling about it? So if we're going to
All
week
right.
17.
All right, here, I'll give you my descriptions
Okay.
of the ones I'm looking at. First one, where I shouldn't take this because the other team's great. I like the Dolphins plus 3.5 at the Ravens.
All right.
Probably stupid, taking the team that just killed the 49ers. Maybe the team that's the favorites to win the Super Bowl. But Zay Flowers has not been practicing for the Ravens. Brandon Stevens, the cornerback, has not been practicing for the Ravens. So I think maybe a little bit of a come down for the Ravens. I think competitive game. I think Dolphins certainly have a chance to win the game. But I think, that half point really made me go here. If it's plus 3, I don't know that I take it, but plus 3.5, I like it. I like their chances to keep it close. There you go. I got the Miami Dolphins plus 3.5 for my first pick. How stupid am I?
They're both excellent teams. They're both very polar teams, right? In terms of what the Dolphins do on offense and how you handle that is kind of unique. And then what Lamar presents as a threat on offense, how you handle that as a defense is unique. And so it's hard to map, but I don't have a good lean on the spread. So Dolphins plus 3.5 is as good as anything.
What do you got? What's
yeah.
your first one?
All right. First one for me is the Texans at home minus 4.5 against the Titans. I love this look. DJ Stroud's coming back in for this one. It's just, I think it's a great, Texans are at home. I think it's just a great Texan spot. I think you're just going to see a lot of points from them. I think you're going to see them handle business against the divisional opponent and ensure that going into week 18, if they beat the Colts, they're looking strong for at least a wild card spot, if not the AFC South. And so this to me just screams Stroud, D'Amico, back on track. Here we go. I like the Texans to win and win big.
All right. There you go. All right. My next one. This is the one I said, am I a sucker for taking this? I'm going to go ahead and take it. I've got the Rams minus 5.5 on the road at the New York Football Giants. I just like this Rams team a lot. I know the buzz has been picking up. I don't like that. I wish they were not popular. I wish no one was talking about them. The buzz has been picking up this week. They've won 5 of 6, though. 4 of those wins have been by more than a touchdown. Only loss in the last 6 games in overtime at the Baltimore Ravens. This team is just playing really, really well. I trust their offense. I trust the quarterback. I trust the play caller. I trust the weapons. And maybe most notable, they're getting very healthy at the right time. So I feel like I'm a sucker. I feel like I can't see a lot of people taking the Giants plus 5.5 in this game. Maybe I'm wrong, but you know what? I looked at all the games, and that's the game I liked. Rams minus 5.5 at the Giants.
I'm on Rams minus 5.5 against the Giants. It's one of my This is right. You say it's a sucker bet. All right, but guess what? The Rams are a lot better than the Giants are. And okay, does Tyrod give them a boost? Tyrod, I think, a better player than DeVito has been? Absolutely. I don't think it's meaningful enough that this line should be 5.5. I'm with you on the sucker bet. You and I were there on Packers minus 4.5. We're just going to go down with these over 3 lines of these teams that should win. We'll go down with the ship.
My last one. Speaking of which, I'm looking at 2 here. I'm not quitting you, Green Bay Packers. I don't care.
I figured.
Plus, what the other one I was looking at was Steelers plus 3.5. But you know what? I said weeks ago, I am not allowed to pick any Steelers game anymore. So I'm just deleting that. And I'm taking the Green Bay Packers plus 1.5, facing a rookie quarterback at least in Jaron Hall. And it's like plus 1.5. If it was Packers, minus 3.5, then I would be even more nervous. I know I'm going to lose this bet. Listen, I know I'm going to lose this lock. I don't care. I can't help myself. If I pick the Packers every week from now until the end of the time, one of those times, it's finally going to hit. I'm sticking with them. Packers plus 1.5 for my final one. All right, go ahead. What's your last one?
Last one for me. If you think you feel bad, let me just pinch my nose real quick and take the Broncos minus 3.5 against the Chargers.
I like it. I'm in on that pick.
I was hoping we would get Stidham at some point so that I could take the Broncos. I was going to look for the Broncos that week because I think Russ has dramatically hindered the offense. And so if I'm getting a line just a hair over a field goal, even with Stidham in his first start in Denver and no Sutton, like my body is screaming at me not to do this, but I'm taking it because I was looking for it. Broncos minus 3.5 at home against the Chargers.
Well, it's the old classic. You take the new coach bump in week 1, and then you fade the new coach in week 2.
Good stuff, fellas. All right, guys, it's now time to welcome in our buddy. He's got the full beard rocking, no mustache today. I respect it. Austin Gale, ringer extraordinaire. Buddy, happy New Year, number 1. Number 2, college football playoff. I feel like going into this thing, this is as wide open a college football playoff as we've had in a while. Both games are good. The spreads are super low. Am I crazy to make the case that all 4 of these teams could go and win this thing?
I don't think you're crazy at all. I think that going into this college football playoff, I've been able to make the case for Texas, make the case for Alabama. Michigan, even though they are one of the higher ranked teams, is one of those things where like, man, like J.J. McCarthy and how he's played over the last couple of weeks, is he the guy that's going to be able to bring home a national championship? Michigan is probably the team I'm lowest on of the 4 remaining teams. Obviously, I feel really good about Washington as well. They have a lot of NFL draft talent in this college football playoff. I've been looking at this wide receiver class, which everyone is talking about, maybe the best wide receiver class since the 2014 NFL draft. That was Sammy Watkins, Odell Beckham, Mike Evans. My opinion is this one might be better with how much talent there is in this class, and a lot of that talent is in the college football playoff.
I think, JJ, I think you're crazy to think all 4 could win, because let me explain to you how a bracket works. There's 2 teams on top and then 2 on bottom.
Thanks for that description. I appreciate it. I needed a PhD to figure that one out. Thanks, Sal. I appreciate that.
Oh, my God.
I appreciate that. Would you be worried, Austin, about the dynamic with Harbaugh being linked to the NFL? And I understand Jim Harbaugh and Michigan. Look, they've been trying to win this thing for a while. The last 2 years, they've gotten to the playoff. It hasn't gone well. They lose to TCU. They get smoked the first year they get in because they were just like hungover from the Ohio State game. But now you got Harbaugh being linked to this job, Harbaugh being linked to that job. You buying that's a concern, or no, not at all?
He's linked to every job every single year. His agent is the hardest working person near New Year's. Like, he's always linked to every single job. It's always consistently getting him leverage at Michigan. It's why there's already rumors he's going to get another monster extension there in Ann Arbor. Like, I'm not worried about it at all. The players don't think about that at all. I think the bigger concern is that video that was leaked when Michigan found out they weren't playing Florida State and they were playing Alabama, and the collective groan amongst every single player on that staff. That's enough for me to be like, I don't know if Michigan has it this year. If they're worried about Bama to that degree and that video's getting out, that gives me more concern.
Yeah, we'll get to your picks and my picks on these games, and I think we're going to be a united front. We'll see if I can get everybody on board to be a united front. I'm so glad they left Florida State out. Look, if I were a Seminole alum, I'd be livid. They would have been a double-digit underdog against whoever they played in these particular games. They just would have with their quarterback situation. Then you look at the fact that Alabama is right there with Michigan. It is entertainment. It is the idea of getting me 2 games that are as enjoyable and as appealing to watch as possible. Playoff hasn't done that enough. They got it right leaving Florida State out. I know the Seminole fans are going to hate me, Austin, but they really did.
Yeah, of course they got it right. They put the 4 best teams in, and that was what the committee was for, right? And I do think that if we were already in, like this year, it was a 12-team college football playoff, Florida State would have ranked 3 because they wouldn't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about putting one team in, putting one team out when you have undefeated schedules, when you have a 12-team playoff. I guarantee Florida State would have ranked 3. But because there's only 4 teams and you're trying to position the 4 best teams into the playoff, then you have to get into the situation where you're leaving an undefeated Power 5 conference champion out. They don't have to do that anymore. You know what they also don't have to do anymore? We don't have to watch a Florida State-Georgia game where all the best players for Florida State opt out, and then everyone has these takes on like, yeah, that's why Florida State never should have gone in. Johnny Wilson didn't play. Keon Coleman didn't play. Their starting running back didn't play. Like, this is the reason the 12-team college football playoff matters. I don't know if you guys want this take, but I'm giving it anyway.
No, I love it.
I don't want to watch any more pointless bowl games. These pointless Peach Bowls and all these different things where, like, this game doesn't matter at all their best players are opted out, is bad for college football. You want to see the 12 best teams in college football at least play their best players in December.
Let me run something by you, Austin, because I agree with you. The 12-team thing does fix a lot, but it might not be the be-all, end-all answer. First of all, FSU is disgusting what they did. The ACC should be suing Florida State and not the other way around for yesterday's performance. But do you worry about next year and, like, let's say like a 12 seed like Liberty, or if it's Arizona or someone like that, they're playing the 5 seed. They're really not going to have a chance. And if they do think they have a chance, they're definitely not going to have a chance against the 1 seed the week after. Do you worry about opt-outs for like a 12 seed? These guys turning pro, whatever, injuries? Because I think that's a concern.
I'd be absolutely shocked if we saw any team in the college football playoff having opt-outs. I think that would be a massive detriment to the 12-team playoff. And I think that if that does happen and you having those concerns, I'd be interested if there are coaches in college football having those concerns. Because
Liberty ain't beating Georgia. Liberty's not beating Georgia, so I don't know.
And I think that the other thing, though, that I will say is that with the 12-team college football playoff, next year, the 12 seed is going to have no chance against the 5 seed. Maybe over the next 5 years, the 12 seed is not going to have a chance against the 5 seed. But the hope is, over time, that having 12 teams in the playoff does lead to this where, like, you can get better recruiting the further you go down in college football. You can get more money to some of these other programs. It's like college basketball, right? My San Diego State Aztecs able to go all the way to the end of that, that national championship run. Having some of that in there just creates more interest across programs rather than looking at college football as these perennial blue chips that you can only root for down in December.
All right. Do you foresee a time where they move the transfer portal dates back, so you don't have as many of these opt-outs? Because it feels like with the portal opening up, a lot of guys, like guys are just in the portal before the bowl games start.
Change is coming with the transfer portal stuff. I would not be surprised if it's more of a window type of thing, like it is similar to free agency in the NFL, where it's like, hey, you can start your transfer process here and your transfer process ends here. There is so much push from college coaches and I think other people who consume college football for there to be some framework around the transfer portal. I think all that stuff's going to change. It has to change, right? Because you're losing a lot of what people love about college football. Like, it used to mean something to be a Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Now, any good, tall, white quarterback in the transfer portal has a chance to be a Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and it's losing its luster.
All right, let's get to picks. I'm fired up. I can't wait to watch these games. This is really a great weekend of football. You got the NFL on Sunday. Then you got the 2 games at 5 and 8:30. Perfect way to start 2024. Austin, since you're a guest, you can open it up. How we betting these games? What is our play for Monday?
My play is Texas, Alabama money line in a parlay. I think on FanDuel right now you can get that at plus 212. I'll start with why I like Alabama over Michigan. I already mentioned the video, but I'll go into I think Jalen Milroe has been amazing down the stretch. I think this offense has more firepower than even Michigan has. And I know people like Blake Corum. I know people like Roman Wilson, Donovan Edwards. I just don't think it's enough. I legitimately don't think it's enough to go against an Alabama team that I think when they're pressed against the wall and when Jalen Milroe has to throw the football downfield, they have more weapons with Jermaine Burton and Isaiah Bond. And I think Jalen Milroe is a better passer in this game. J.J. McCarthy's passing total on FanDuel is like 178. They're not expecting him to throw the football. They're not expecting him to have a ton of success. They're going to need that success on the ground. Alabama's run defense has been surprisingly a lot better down the stretch as well. I like Alabama there. The bonus play I have in that game, Roman Wilson over 25 yards, Jermaine Burton over 40 yards. I think you can get that at plus 110 on FanDuel as a parlay. And why I like Texas is this game's going to come down to Big Three versus Big Three. Washington's Big Three, Romeo Duns, Jalen Polk, and Jalen McMillan. 3 of the best receivers in college football, probably the best trio in college football. Then you have Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell, and Jordan Whittington. For Texas, another trio of receivers, and 2 of those guys are high-end draft guys that I think can really dominate. The X factor between them, Steve Sarkisian. What he's done to dial up an explosive offense in Texas with Q Ewers at the helm, I think is nothing but, it's one of the best offenses in football. And I think they can score in a second. I don't know. In a high-scoring game, I think the total's at 62.5. Give me the team that has the better offensive play caller, in my opinion, and one with 2 potential top 50 picks.
I like it. I like it. I like it. And I'm right there with you as far as Milroe is concerned. Michigan has not seen a mobile quarterback to the likes of Milroe. And I think you're going to see that in this game. And I know it's going against a lot of the sharp trends. A lot of sharp guys are coming in on Michigan in this game. I don't care. I don't even think you got to bother as far as taking Alabama with the points. I think Alabama is going to go and win the game outright. Now, Raheem, you know I'm on Bama. Kind of teased it at the end of Wise Guys. You're not. Make the case for Michigan.
Okay, so you look at this Alabama team, and really they shouldn't even be here. They're only here because they converted a 4th and 31 against Auburn, where Auburn decided that they weren't going to rush anybody. Like, they just let him sit back there and convert the 4th and 31. Then they beat a Georgia team who, I mean, look, Georgia's great. But Nick Saban is 5-1 against Kirby Smart. He's dominated that matchup. So, to me, they're going up against this Michigan team who just has a dominant defense. They're first in scoring defense, first in touchdowns, first in total defense, second in passing yards allowed. This Alabama team gives up a ton of sacks. They give up 43 sacks this year, almost 4 a game. And I look at Jalen Milroe. This is a guy who got benched earlier this year. I mean, he's only completed 65% of his passes. He was 13 of 23 against Georgia. You're facing this Michigan secondary, which is probably the best in the league. Everybody's going to be betting on Alabama. And I think it's telling that odds makers have this line set at Michigan -1.5. I'm going to ride with the odds makers. I'm going to ride with the sharps. I'm going to take Michigan.
Wow. Heads up. Sal, where do we stand?
Well, true story. I'm leaving the movie theater the other day with my family. My son's a freshman at Oregon. He's all decked out in Oregon gear. And some drunk kid comes up to him and says, Michael Penis is a loser. And it looked like we were going to have to, my kid was going to have to fight him. And then he's like, oh, no, he's actually in support of Oregon there. So that was a little weird, but it really has nothing to do with my analysis, but I'm all with Austin. He really gave the same thing I did. Texas, Alabama, moneyline parlay play +218. Texas, 3rd ranked rush defense. It's going to be hard for Washington to handle, and it's going to force Penix, or as he's so affectionately called, I won't even repeat it, into some tough throwing situations. I think they avenged their Alamo Bowl from game from last year, and give me Saban and Jalen Milroe. Nifty play calling gives me a +218. Longhorn Tide rematch. College football fans ultimately win.
Wow, Austin, Sal, properly aligned. And I'm right there with you guys. I like Texas in the game as well. So let's make it the 3 amigos. Texas, Alabama, moneyline parlay. What can go wrong? All right, House. I don't know where you stand on either of these games. Let's see if you're with Dream or you're on with Austin and Mr. Sal.
Well, I want to know who Michael is and why we're talking about his penis on this show. But we'll move past that. I'm on the Alabama money line. One of the head coaches in the Alabama-Michigan tilt is 0-6 in his last 6 bowl games, and the other one is undefeated in this very position, the college football playoff semifinal. The one that hasn't won is Harbaugh, the guy that wins every year that they get into this position. It's Nick Saban. And I understand and recognize, I acknowledge the defensive stats that Michigan has accumulated. They play terrible football teams. They have amassed great numbers against bad offenses. Congratulations to them on that. They have no explosive capacity whatsoever on offense, and they will not be able to score against this Alabama defense that has really come on lately. I like Alabama in this spot. I'm on the Alabama money line.
Wow, Raheem, how do you like being the lone wolf on Michigan in this game? I bet you love it.
I do. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, if I'm going up head up against everybody, I feel more confident.
Raheem's going to be doing the Wolf of Wall Street. I had to do it. All right, Austin, let's get to the NFL. We're aligned in college football. What are you bringing to the table for the Wise Guys as far as week 17?
I got a 6-point teaser that takes Chiefs over Bengals -0.5 point and Rams over Giants -0.5 point. I like the Chiefs over Jake Browning's Bengals, especially against that Bengals defense that's been horrendous this year. It goes to show like how volatile defense is. 1 year, big Lou Anarumo is his head coaching candidate. This year, they were 31st in success rate and 24th in points allowed per drive. You could say, well, he's got worse players. Then you say, wait, maybe that's all that matters. No, it's not all that matters, but still, it's crazy how we hire these defensive coaches every year, Matt Eberflus, et cetera, and you're like, wow, they're going to bring a good defense. defense is so volatile. You have to have all this player health, all these different things. The Bengals, once they vaunted defense, one of the worst in the league this year. I like the Chiefs over that Bengals team. And then for the Rams or the Giants, I'm glad you guys talked about travel. They fly first class, okay? They're playing
Right.
video games. They're playing PlayStation 5 with VR headsets on the plane. Why are we caring about 4.5-hour trips? If they're going to Germany or Europe or whatever, let's have a conversation. Those flights are tough. But my goodness, these guys are flying first class, especially LA Rams going to the Giants. I like Tyrod Taylor over any quarterback the Giants have started this year, but I still feel like the Rams have a lot to play for. Playoff positioning obviously on the line. Stafford has been insane this year. I think he's made Puka Nacua look better. He's made Cooper Kupp, even coming after the injury, look better. He's playing at an absurd level, so much that it's hard not to back Matthew Stafford versus Tyrod Taylor. If you can get it down to a half point with the teaser, I like that a lot.
I love the sound of that, Austin. And listen, it's one thing when you're flying first class on the charter. It's not exactly me in the middle seat after a rough night on a Thursday trying to fly out to the West Coast on a Friday. Story for a different day. Thank you for joining us here in Digital Time. Let's cash that Texas Bama ticket. We'll be riding together on that one. For Austin Gale, Cousin Sal, Joe House, and the Lone Wolf, Raheem Palmer, John Jastremski signing off. Happy New Year, one and all. We'll see you next week. The Wise Guys will reunite for the regular season finale. Hard to believe for this NFL season.